You have been lied to your entire life about exercise. Let me ask you something right now. How many times have you been told that walking more is the best thing you can do for your health after 60? Doctors say it. Fitness magazines repeat it. Family members insist on it. Just get your steps in. But here's an honest question for you. If walking alone really worked, why do so many people who walk every day still struggle to stand up, climb stairs, or carry groceries? A groundbreaking 2023 study from the University of Missouri shocked the medical community. Adults over 60 who performed specific seated exercises improved their functional strength by 27% more than those who only walked. So let me ask you directly, would a 27% increase in strength change how you move through your day? That difference isn't small. It's the difference between lifting your grandchild or needing help. So tell me in the comments, what daily task feels harder today than it did 5 years ago? The walking industry doesn't want you to hear this. Shoe companies, fitness trackers, treadmill brands all profit from the idea that walking is the ultimate solution. But here's the real question. Have you ever noticed that even people who walk thousands of steps a day still feel weaker every year? Orthopedic surgeons have known this truth for decades. Walking is excellent for your heart, but it does almost nothing to stop muscle loss after 60. And let me ask you something important here. Did anyone ever explain that muscle loss is the real reason independence disappears with age? This condition is called sarcopenia. It steals 3 to 5% of your muscle mass every decade after 30. By 70, up to 30% of your strength may be gone. So, here's a serious question. Do you feel that loss already, especially in your legs or when standing up? Walking cannot stop sarcopenia, but targeted chair exercises can. A Harvard Medical School study followed over 2,000 seniors for 18 months. One group walked. The other performed seated resistance exercises. Let me ask you, which group do you think gained muscle? The seated group gained muscle. The walking group lost it. Same age, same health, completely different outcomes. So ask yourself this. If two people are the same age, why would one get stronger and the other weaker doing different exercises? And here's where it gets even more surprising. The number one chair exercise on this list increased bone density by 19% in adults over 65. So let me ask you honestly, when was the last time you were told an exercise could improve your bones, not just your muscles? Surgeons now prescribe this exact movement to patients after hip replacements because it works better than many traditional therapy protocols. So here's a powerful question. If surgeons trust this movement for recovery, why isn't it talked about more? Before we continue, let me ask you something simple so I know who I'm talking to. How old are you? And where are you watching from? Drop that in the comments now. We read every single one. Now, let's begin with number 5. And I want to ask you this first. Have you ever trained your calves while sitting down, or have you always ignored them completely? Number 5. Seated calf raises. At first glance, this sounds almost too simple. You sit in a chair and lift your heels. But let me ask you something. Have simple movements ever surprised you with how hard they actually are? This exercise targets one of the most overlooked muscle groups in the lower body. Your calf muscles, specifically the gastrocnemius and soleus. And here's an important question. Did you know these muscles help pump blood back to your heart every time they contract? This is called the venous pump. Every heel lift pushes blood upward, reducing swelling, improving circulation, and supporting heart health. So let me ask you, do your legs ever feel heavy, swollen, or tired by the end of the day? If they do, this exercise matters more than you think. This is critical, so let me ask you something very directly. Did you know that every drop of blood in your legs has to fight gravity just to get back to your heart? And if that process fails, what do you think happens in your feet and ankles over time? Without strong calf muscles, blood begins to pool in the lower extremities, which leads to swelling, varicose veins, and a much higher risk of dangerous blood clots. Have you ever noticed your ankles looking more swollen at night than in the morning, or your legs feeling heavy after sitting for a while? A 2021 study published in the Journal of Applied Physiology examined 140 seniors with mild circulation problems, and here's a question for you. Do you think doing nothing or doing one simple seated exercise made the bigger difference? Half of the participants performed seated calf raises 3 times per week, while the other half changed nothing. After just 12 weeks, the exercise group showed a 41% improvement in venous return efficiency. So ask yourself this: what would a 41% improvement in circulation mean for how your legs feel every day? Their ankles were less swollen, their legs felt lighter, and most importantly, their risk factors for deep vein thrombosis dropped significantly. Walking does engage your calves, but here's an important question. When you walk, are your calves really being challenged, or are they just sharing the workload with dozens of other muscles? When you walk, hundreds of muscles divide the effort. But when you perform seated calf raises, you isolate the exact muscles responsible for pumping blood upward. So let me ask you this: wouldn't it make sense to train the muscles that directly control circulation? To perform this exercise correctly, sit in a sturdy chair with your feet flat on the floor and your knees bent at about 90 degrees. Now, ask yourself while you're doing it, can you feel the work exactly where it should be, in the back of your lower legs? Press through the balls of your feet and lift your heels as high as possible, then hold that position for 2 full seconds. Do you feel that strong squeeze in your calves? That's the muscle doing its job. Then lower your heels slowly back down. And here's a key question most people never consider. Did you know that the slow lowering phase builds muscle even more effectively than the lifting phase? That controlled descent creates what's called an eccentric contraction, which is especially powerful for rebuilding strength as we age. If you're new to exercise, start with 15 repetitions and work your way up to 3 sets of 25. And let me ask you honestly, could you fit 1 minute of this into your day? Once it becomes easy, place a heavy book or small weight across your thighs to add resistance. Surgeons love this exercise because it puts no stress on the hips or knees. So here's a question worth thinking about. How many exercises can you do that build strength without irritating your joints? Perform this movement every single day, ideally morning and evening, and ask yourself after 2 weeks, do your legs feel lighter, steadier, and less swollen than before? Now let's move to an exercise that solves a completely different problem. But before we do, let me ask you this. Has this information been useful so far? And do you know someone over 60 who struggles with their legs? If so, tapping like and subscribing helps this reach them. Number 4, seated knee extensions. Let me ask you something important here. Have you ever struggled to climb stairs, get out of a car, or stand up from a toilet without pushing with your arms? All of those movements depend heavily on one muscle group, your quadriceps. These large muscles on the front of your thighs deteriorate faster than almost any other muscle as you age. Research from the University of Vermont in 2020 followed 400 adults over 5 years and found something alarming. So ask yourself this: what happens if you never specifically train a muscle that's responsible for your independence? Adults over 60 who didn't perform targeted leg exercises lost an average of 16% of their thigh muscle mass. Meanwhile, the group that performed seated knee extensions just 3 times per week actually gained 4%. That's a 20% difference from one simple movement. Now here's a question that matters. Why doesn't walking protect your quadriceps? When you walk on flat ground, your quads barely activate. They move your leg forward, but they never work against real resistance. And here's the truth your body always follows. If you don't challenge a muscle, it shrinks. Seated knee extensions force your quadriceps to lift the full weight of your lower leg against gravity. That resistance is the signal your muscles need to grow. To perform this exercise, sit tall in your chair with your back firmly against the backrest and grip the sides of the seat. Now straighten one leg out until your knee is fully extended, toes pointing toward the ceiling. Ask yourself as you hold it for 3 seconds, can you feel that deep burn in the front of your thigh? That's the muscle rebuilding strength. Then lower your foot slowly back to the floor over 4 seconds. And here's a final question for this movement. Can you imagine how much easier stairs and standing up would feel if this muscle were 20% stronger? Now switch to the other leg and repeat the movement, aiming for 12 repetitions on each side. As you rest for 30 seconds before the next set, let me ask you something important. When you lift your leg, are you actually feeling the muscle working, or are you just moving your leg through space? The real key to maximum benefit here is the squeeze at the top. So ask yourself this while you're doing it. Am I actively contracting my quadriceps, or am I just letting my leg hang there? Don't just lift and relax. Imagine you're trying to make that muscle visibly tighten under the skin. Did you know that simply thinking about squeezing the muscle can dramatically increase strength gains? A 2023 study published in the European Journal of Applied Physiology found that participants who mentally focused on contracting the muscle gained 31% more strength than those who just went through the motions. So here's a question worth answering honestly. When you exercise, are you truly connected to the movement, or are you rushing to finish? Once bodyweight knee extensions start to feel easy, you can add resistance with ankle weights or a resistance band. Start light, around 2 pounds, and progress gradually. And let me ask you this. Would you rather add a little resistance now or risk losing strength year after year by doing nothing? Orthopedic surgeons recommend this exercise to nearly every patient over 60 because strong quadriceps act like shock absorbers for your knees. With every step you take, that muscle reduces stress on the joint. So here's a simple question. If one muscle can protect your knees every time you walk, shouldn't it be trained consistently? Now, let's move to the next exercise, and this one surprises almost everyone. Number 3, seated hip marches. Let me ask you something you may never have considered before. Do you know which muscles actually lift your legs when you walk? Your hip flexors, mainly the iliopsoas and rectus femoris, are the hidden controllers of your walking ability. Every single step you take depends on them. So what happens when these muscles weaken? You stop stepping and start shuffling. Have you noticed your feet barely clearing the ground lately, or feeling like you have to think about every step? That's often not balance, it's hip flexor weakness. A landmark Mayo Clinic study in 2022 analyzed gait patterns in 800 adults aged 60 to 85 and asked a crucial question: which weakness predicts falls better than any other? The answer was hip flexor weakness. Participants with the weakest hip flexors were 4 times more likely to fall within the following year. 4 times. Let me ask you directly, do you realize how much one fall can change your life? Falls aren't small accidents for seniors. According to the CDC, 1 in 4 adults over 65 falls each year, and 20% of those falls cause serious injuries like fractures or head trauma. Hip fractures are especially dangerous. Did you know that nearly 30% of seniors who suffer a hip fracture die within 1 year? This isn't said to scare you. It's meant to wake you up. So here's the real question. If a simple seated exercise could strengthen the muscles that prevent falls, why wouldn't you do it? Seated hip marches directly train the muscles responsible for lifting your legs. They mimic walking, but with more resistance and control. You're teaching your body to lift higher than it ever does during a casual walk. To perform the exercise, sit on the front half of your chair, and here's a key question. Are you leaning back and making it easier, or sitting tall and letting your muscles work? Keep your spine upright and your core lightly engaged. Now lift your right knee toward your chest as high as comfortably possible. As you hold for 2 seconds, ask yourself, can I feel this in the front of my hip, right where it should be? Then lower slowly and switch sides. That's 1 repetition. And here's something most people miss. Did you know that slower movements build more strength than fast ones? Avoid swinging your legs. Lift with pure muscle control. Aim for 20 repetitions total, alternating legs, and perform 3 sets with 1 minute of rest. Want to challenge yourself further? Ask yourself this. Can I hold the top position for 5 seconds instead of 2? And once that becomes manageable, ankle weights add even more benefit. The question now is simple. Will you start training the muscles that lift your legs, or keep hoping walking alone will do the job? Surgeons have observed something very interesting over the years, and I want to ask you this before we go on. Have you ever noticed how some people recover faster after surgery than others, even at the same age? Patients who perform hip marches daily before joint replacement surgery consistently recover faster afterward. Why does that happen? Because their muscles are already active, responsive, and strong, which makes rehabilitation smoother and safer. And here's an important question for you. When was the last time you trained your balance while seated? This exercise also improves balance because your core must stabilize your body while one leg is elevated. Can you feel your abdomen gently working when one leg is lifted, or does your body wobble? That awareness matters. Now we're moving into what orthopedic surgeons often call essential exercises for independent living. Let me ask you something simple but powerful. How many daily tasks require pulling strength? Opening doors, getting out of bed, pulling on clothes, carrying groceries, hugging your family. Do you notice how often you pull rather than push? All of these actions depend on the muscles of your back, especially your latissimus dorsi, rhomboids, and rear deltoids. So here's the key question. Are you training the muscles that hold you upright, or are you letting gravity slowly win? These are the muscles that prevent the hunched posture so common with aging. When they weaken, shoulders round forward, and the upper spine curves into what doctors call kyphosis. And let me ask you honestly, have you noticed your shoulders drifting forward over the years, or your head jutting ahead of your body? This isn't just cosmetic. It compresses your lungs, makes breathing harder, shifts your center of gravity forward, and increases fall risk. Walking does absolutely nothing for these muscles. So here's the uncomfortable question. If walking doesn't train your back, why do so many people rely on it alone? When you walk, your arms swing passively. There's no pulling. That's why many dedicated walkers still develop poor posture. A 2021 study in the American Journal of Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation followed 300 seniors for 6 months and asked a critical question. Which approach actually improves posture? One group walked. The other performed seated rowing with resistance bands. The result? The rowing group improved spinal posture by an average of 8 degrees, while the walking group showed no change. Even more telling, the rowing group reported 63% less upper back and neck pain. So ask yourself, would you rather keep walking and hope your posture improves, or strengthen the muscles proven to support your spine? To perform seated rows, you'll need a resistance band. These bands are inexpensive, joint-friendly, and extremely effective. Sit with your feet flat on the floor, loop the band around the soles of your feet, and hold one end in each hand. Now here's the question that determines results. Are you sitting tall or slouching without noticing? Sit upright, arms extended with slight tension, then pull your elbows back, squeezing your shoulder blades together. Can you feel the muscles between your shoulders activating, or are your arms doing all the work? Hold for 2 seconds, then slowly release. Control matters. Do not let the band snap back. Perform 15 repetitions per set for 3 sets. And ask yourself this as you go. Do the last 3 reps feel challenging? If not, the band is too light. Surgeons often prescribe this exercise after spinal procedures because strong back muscles act like guy wires on a tent, holding your spine in proper alignment. So here's a question worth answering. If one exercise can support your spine every hour of the day, shouldn't it be part of your routine? Now we arrive at the most important exercise of all, the one surgeons prescribe more than any other. Number 1, sit-to-stand squats. Let me ask you directly, if you could only do one exercise for the rest of your life, wouldn't you want it to train something you use every single day? The sit-to-stand squat isn't just exercise, it's a diagnostic marker for longevity. A major study in the European Journal of Preventive Cardiology followed over 2,000 adults and asked a sobering question. Who survives longer? Those unable to rise from a seated position without using their hands were 5 to 6 times more likely to die during the study period. 5 to 6 times. So, here's the real question. Can you stand up from a chair without using your hands right now? This movement activates nearly every major muscle group in your lower body. Your quadriceps straighten your knees, your glutes extend your hips, your calves stabilize your ankles, your core maintains balance, and your back keeps your spine aligned. No other exercise does all of this at once. And here's what makes it even more powerful. How many times a day do you stand up from a chair, bed, car, or toilet? By training this movement, you're not building abstract strength. You're building real-world ability. A 2023 study found that adults over 65 performing sit-to-stands 3 times weekly increased hip and femur bone density by 19%. Did you know bones respond to movement just like muscles do? Mechanical stress tells bones to rebuild. Stronger bones mean fewer fractures if you fall. That's why many surgeons now require patients to perform a minimum number of sit-to-stands before scheduling elective surgery. To perform it correctly, start seated with feet slightly wider than hip width, arms crossed over your chest. Lean forward slightly, push through your heels, and stand fully. Pause for 1 second, then lower slowly over 4 seconds. Here's the key question. Are you controlling the descent or dropping into the chair? That slow descent is where strength is built. Start with 10 repetitions, progress to 3 sets of 15, and add light weight only when ready. Perform every other day. Within weeks, everyday tasks feel easier. Stairs feel less intimidating. Getting out of low chairs stops being a struggle. And here's the final question I want you to answer honestly. Which of these 5 chair exercises are you most excited to try first? And have you ever been told that walking alone was enough after 60? Share that in the comments, because your answer may help someone else take their first step towards strength and independence.